Found Authentic Business Adventures, the business program that brings you the struggle stories and triumphant successes of business owners across the land. We are locally underwritten by the Bank of Sun Prairie. My name is James Kateman, and today is a huge day because this is episode number 200, and I get to celebrate it with Amy Moore, the owner of Little Luxuries, which is pretty awesome because I've been trying to get you on this show for a long time.
Yeah, and I've been looking forward to this moment.
Yeah, so episode 200. So Amy, how's it going today?
It's going well. Thanks so much for inviting me to join you today.
Yeah.
And congratulations on the 200th episode. Woo! I feel honored to be a part of this episode. Yeah.
Well, it's a big deal. And we're on location at Little Luxuries store. So how about you tell us just a little bit about what Little Luxuries is for maybe the people that don't know.
Yeah, okay. So Little Luxuries is a gift shop located in downtown Madison now since 1990. So we're a staple down here.
Wow.
In the heart of the city. And let's see, we got a little bit of something for everybody for gifts. From 0 to 101. So any person you have in your life that's that needs a little pick-me-up or has a special celebration or maybe a little something for yourself, we got something for everybody. And I just enjoy thoroughly curating the space with some unique products that you can't find just anywhere.
Right.
And the items are well designed and inspire thoughts and just kind of allow someone to take a little break from your everyday and just enjoy life in simple ways. Mm-hmm.
You know, it's really cool because as we're setting up around here, I was looking around and I like to have quotes everywhere, all over my office and the shop, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I thought I had a lot, but around here there's so many inspirational or cool little sayings, little stickers of quotes and stuff like that on there.
Yeah, we've maximized every itty-bitty space that we can in this environment, for sure. Mm-hmm. And my background is interior design, so merchandising is one of my favorite things to do, actually.
I don't think I knew that about you.
Yeah. I studied here at University of Madison.
All right.
And I didn't know that I'd use my skills in this setting, but it works out and translates really well to do the buying and then figuring out where exactly it's going to go and how to maximize this environment.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a fun project.
All right, so let's talk about how you got started in this. So you bought the business when it was already running.
Yes,
but
2011. Yep.
2011, okay, so that's over a decade ago.
Yeah, just celebrated 10 years.
That is crazy.
I know, time flies. It's pretty amazing.
And you were working here before?
Yes.
So how long did you work here before you ended up buying the business?
Yeah, let's see. So I started working here in 2006.
Okay.
So at that time I was just working part-time.
Oh, wow.
So the part-time position eventually evolved into a managerial position when the manager stepped out of her position. And then eventually the business owner was getting to the point of retirement. And I just happened to already kind of be in the position as manager, doing a lot of the buying, going to the shows, managing the staff, and pretty much everything but the financials. And so at that point, the current owner, Janice Durand, she just saw some characteristics in my capabilities that kind of matched hers, and she thought it would be a good match to be a business owner. So she presented the opportunity. And I was ready, to take it on. And so I stepped forward and I'm like, let's do this. So we had a couple years before we did the transition in 2011 to prepare for that. So I actually did a class, Business Fundamentals is what it was called back in the day. It's the Business Development Center.
Sure.
Or Small Business Development Center.
Development Center.
Yeah, exactly. So I learned a little bit about, all aspects of running a business. And then also have a mentor that I continue to use there. So just maximize the resources in the community to learn and grow, and then use the skills that I had learned through working here. And it translated out all right. Yeah.
So when you first came here, it was just kind of a little side hustle, pay the rent kind of thing?
Yeah. And I think that's maybe a message for anybody of any age, really, especially younger folks. I mean, you never know what a job could turn into.
Right.
I mean, and so, how you show up in the world and at your job really can make a difference. And I think anything could be possible if you're showing that you're motivated and you're showing capability and enthusiasm. I think it could go a long way if you're in the right spot at the right time. That's also
fair.
aspect. Yeah,
that drive of an employee I think is a big deal because it reflects both on them as an employee, but also just where they're going with their life.
Yeah, exactly.
You only get one shot, so you better better give it your best, I suppose.
Totally.
So you got in here part-time, you build up to manager, and she comes to you and it's like, hey, Amy, I'm bowing out. What are your thoughts on buying a store?
Yeah.
Was your first thought like, absolutely, I've never run a business before, let's jump on this?
Oh man, no, definitely not. So the first thought was like, wow, I can't believe she thinks I'm capable of this. Because I mean, yes, I thought I did my job well, but I never really had that on my mind. Yeah. My second thought was, that sounds scary. You know, doing something that I've never done before, taking on that big of a risk. Yeah, so then there was that fear element, right? Like that fear of possible failure.
Right.
And trying to overcome that. And that takes some time, right? To like educate yourself, you know, think on it, you know, learn more, I guess, bring in professionals, you know, to kind of guide you. And once taking that class, you know, just to learn more about how to run a business, it just kind of inspires more confidence. And also being in an environment with other people interested in starting their own business or taking on a business. Also just like
just
that energy.
Students. Okay.
Yeah, the other students in the class I think is helpful because it just reminds you that, you know, every business has to start somewhere, right? Or a transition of a business. And there's so many other people that have been in that circumstance and have succeeded and have failed. And it's kind of a part of life. So I think also being in that energy and seeing other people interested and, yeah, taking a risk and seeing how it goes. And
nice.
that was also inspiring.
All right. So when you were in that class, this is always curious to me, because Little Luxuries is essentially a staple of Madison.
Yeah.
Like when I mention, hey, I know Amy at Little Luxuries, blah, 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 when you're talking about retail, they're like, I know Little Luxuries, right? So when you're in this class, you're talking to someone that's thinking about starting their little coffee shop or their little dog walking business, and you're like, you know the Capitol building?
Yeah.
That store just a block away from that? Yeah, I'm going to own that.
Yeah.
So was it interesting talking to people that knew the business that you were essentially going to buy?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because like you said, it's been here since 1990, so people are very familiar with the store. That was interesting. All of a sudden, immediately I felt like I became some kind of, like, famous person, you know, like a superstar. Right. Like, oh, you're that person that owns that shop I've been going to since I was a kid, or, you know, since I moved here. And yeah, so I had a little fame associated with that. And that
nice.
Feels kind of strange because I'm kind of a, you know, I'm kind of a quieter person, you know, I'm not very showy myself, and yeah, so that's unique to be kind of elevated in that way, knowing that people are familiar with the business. And yeah, so interestingly, when I was in college here, I worked in retail on State Street, and so that was like my first experience. I mean, I moved to Madison from West Bend. West Bend is a pretty small town of like, at the time it was like 25,000, you know, which is about the size of the university. So coming to this school, as far as the amount of students, but coming to this school and coming to this city, I'm like, oh, big city, I got to work on State Street, it's so exciting. You know, and so that's where I kind of got my passion for connecting with the community and just like being in a beautiful environment filled with beautiful things. But at one point, Janice also owned Puzzle Box at the same time she had Little Luxuries. And I, at one point, actually applied to work there, and I did not get the job. So, so little did I know, later I would own one of her other businesses that actually moved into the space. So Puzzle Box used to be here, and Little Luxuries moved into the space from just down the street in 2008.
Oh, okay.
So the job that I did not get, I later owned a different business that person owned, so that's kind of funny to have that.
Yeah, right.
But I loved those stores that she owned, and to be the owner myself now is an honor.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. Don't sweat the not getting a job. I applied at Arby's when I was in high school and I didn't get the job, so.
Yeah, that happens.
They're lost, Arby's, right?
Exactly.
Tell me about when was it Janet? Janet was
Janice.
Okay.
Yeah.
When she comes to you and she's like, hey, Amy, you interested in buying this? Was she also pushing it out to other people? Or were you her focus?
I was
And if you
her
didn't buy
focus.
it, then she'd have to broadcast a little more.
Exactly. I was her focus.
Okay.
Exactly. And yeah, it didn't take too long for me to make that decision, so she didn't have to really do much searching elsewhere.
Right.
But I totally appreciate the idea of looking into, you know, looking at your own team, you know, with the skills that they have, and in this case, like, not necessarily does everybody have the financial means, right? So we were able to establish, you know, a circumstance where we had a 5-year period of paying off the business. It was like almost like a personal loan with her.
Okay.
So
she financed it.
She financed it,
Okay.
yeah. So there was opportunities there that wouldn't be, in a circumstance where you don't have a personal relationship on that level. And I think she wanted the business to continue. She wanted it to succeed, and having someone already in the know kind of helps, maybe. Yeah, guarantee that a little bit more.
Right.
So yeah, I am super appreciative that opportunity arose, and when I get to the point where I'm ready to retire, then I would love to do the same thing. So it would be great to pass it on to other staff members and continue on with the business.
All right. So when you bought the business from her, tell me about the transition. Was she just like, here's the keys, I'm out,
Yeah.
I'm hitting the beach or whatever?
Yeah.
Or did she stay on to help you learn about the financials or how she does things on the back
Yeah.
end that you may not have known?
Yeah, she stayed on for that 5-year period.
5 years, the whole
5
time?
years, yeah,
Oh, wow.
the whole time. So because she was still a part, because I hadn't fully paid it off, from the get-go, and she still had some skin in the game in essence. She was a part of that. We would meet quarterly, and we would kind of review the financials. And she was there anytime, if something came up or I had some questions. So at first I'm like, oh, this is so helpful, in the way that, she's kind of tethered to it yet, and she's willing to share her knowledge. By the second half of the 5 years, I was like, and I'm ready to be independent here. And I can't wait for this to be over with. So, but it did help with the transition initially.
All right.
Yeah. And even today, she does come in. She lives downtown, and she'll come in and check in on things, and she's still curious. And she said she'd still work here and there if we needed help with the staffing situation. So, so I think for me, it was helpful without having much of a business background. Yeah.
It's interesting you talk about the transition and how you kind of got sick of it after 2.5 years.
Yeah.
I think I would have been sick of it after 2.5 weeks.
Yeah, I can.
Because I imagine there's just, it's essentially two decision makers at that point, right?
Yeah, right.
And you're like, I got this vision for where we're going to advance in the future.
Yeah.
And she may be like, well, that's not how I was thinking of it. I don't know how much of that was there.
Not as much as I anticipated. I mean, she would say things, but in essence, I was the final decision maker. So it didn't get too difficult regarding positions, like differing positions on anything too major.
Okay.
So, I mean, I think she did a pretty good job of keeping enough distance, but still being present and available.
All right.
So it didn't get too overbearing. It was just to the point where I'm like, I'm done with the helicopter parent, just like making sure everything's okay. But overall, I felt like it was pretty healthy as far as that.
All right.
That assistance yet separation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Nice. So after you bought the business, the first few years, were there some hiccups or challenges that you did not anticipate?
Let's see here. Well, I think my main focus initially, as far as just how the business is run as a whole, there's that delicate balance when you buy a business that already exists and is successful. There's that balance between, continuing, not making too many changes to the point where the success is affected, right? But yet making enough changes where I'm making my personal impression on a business.
Yeah.
So initially when I started, of course I continued running the business as it was and just kind of monitoring my own interest and the desires to make and evolve a business to be more me than Janice. And that's something that I initially, especially in those first 5 years, were things that I was thinking a lot about. Now I feel like I'm like, all right, anything goes. This is my story, and I know more than I did then as far as what the demands are, and those demands of our customers and our community changes regularly. And then also, she didn't have any social media presence when I bought the business, so we were a little bit behind in that way. I felt like the website and the social media was back in the 90s. And with technology, things evolve so fast. So I got the Facebook going, Facebook page, and then Instagram. but we were just a little bit delayed on that game. So kind of catching up on the technological side of the business, and then getting a new website. And then, of course, in the last 2 years, like getting some, you know, products online, you know, to sell them. So we had an e-commerce site.
Right.
Now we've evolved it into that. But I think, yeah, just catching up in that way, and then also evolving a space that still looked like the 80s, because she had done a remodel when she moved in here with Puzzle Box, so that was early 80s. You know, with the teals and the pinks.
Nice.
And, you know, we were kind of living in the past in this environment, so that was also a project I took on, was bringing it to the present, a little more contemporary, fresh, clean look, a little less pink. Yeah. So, yeah, just kind of bringing it up to speed for the times, and then also evolving the product. And those products now, you know, we have categories of products that we carry, like, you know, books, games, accessories, jewelry, all these, you know, the children's area here with the toys. But evolving it even more so these days to more locally made goods with diverse, you know, makers in our community, and then also associating to values to a lot of the products. You know, we have this focus on the environment and reusable products, so we have like that category. We're expanding into a pet category with everyone. You know, I feel like the amount of pets in people's lives have increased in the past 2 years, of course, and we don't have a pet store downtown, so just some kind of higher end fun pet toys and accessories are something we're going to dabble in. Yeah, and I'm trying to think, and mindfulness, you know, that's something people are focused on. Just like we're trying to create an environment that inspires people and creates positivity. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, the diversity of products that you have in here. I mean, we can see everything from glasses, stickers, handbags, hair ties, jewelry, umbrellas, books, postcards.
It's kind of the one-stop shop for
I feel like
small business.
if you can't find something in here for someone, you're not looking.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Very crazy. I was trying to get the shot where you could show all this that you have, and I'm like, maybe we got to get a drone or something.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I want to talk to you about employees, because the transition had to happen where she was the boss, you were manager, and now you're the owner. Was that tough? Or was that pretty simple? Like, hey, Amy's the one signing in the front of your check now, so do what she says, or was that?
Yeah. I think the toughest part was definitely the relationship with the other manager. You know, we were equals.
Okay.
And then all of a sudden going from equals to, yes, I am the owner of this business, making the decisions when we would equally, you know, converse. But then again, I have always been a manager, like, open to feedback and more a collaborative manager. But that was a little different, you know, when we would have differing opinions. You know, the existing manager that used to be more of an equal, when now as the business owner, I'd have to make some decisions here and there, and you know, it just takes a little while for that relationship to evolve to understand the difference in that this new relationship. But yeah, eventually we got over that hurdle.
All right.
But in retail, you know, there is high turnover, unfortunately, so she's no longer with us at the moment. You know, life circumstances changed for her, but yeah, so, and we have a lot of students, so those students kind of turn over as well. So I would say initially it was the relationship with the co-manager that took some time to settle into. Yeah.
Got it. Okay, so employees as a whole is an excellent segue, right?
Yeah.
It's got to be tough to find people, retail, because you're talking nights, weekends, dealing with the public, which a lot of people aren't that big of a fan of.
Yeah.
And keeping track of all the stuff.
Yeah.
And handling money. I mean, that's a big thing. So tell me about how you've learned to deal with people. I worded that wrong. Let's just say how to hire, train, manage people.
Yeah, okay. Well, let's see. Yeah, I totally know what you're getting at. Let's see. So, as far as hiring goes, what's been most effective for us has been putting just a sign up in the window, which we actually permanently pretty much have in the window. It's never coming down, and it's on every window. But we do have high pedestrian traffic. And to work downtown, it's often most convenient to live downtown, and we do have that student population that is, dwelling downtown.
Yeah.
Although, yeah, there are some it's a retirement community too. There are a lot of retirees that are that pop in and like, hey, I'm looking for something to do.
All right.
So that's been the most effective. Of course, we'll go online and use several sources there, and the university does have a job site for students to find. So that's worked effectively for part-time staff. Unfortunately, also a source has been as retailers have closed. On the street here, we've actually kind of picked up some of the staff that used to work at other stores.
Okay.
So we have a woman that was working here from Serve. Serve, the fair trade shop next door, had closed in the last year. And then also Capital Kids on the square closed, I think maybe a couple years ago. We have a staff member from there that applied, that wanted to stay downtown and still do retail. We recently had a woman from Momoka gift shop that has closed in this last year just reaching out, just saying, hey, are you hiring at all? I'm looking for work. So so we're known in the retail downtown community, and I think if you get kind of hooked in retail, you love it. Like, a lot of people enjoy being on their feet. They like the variety. They like the interacting with the community. And once you kind of fall in love with that, you want to stick with it. So,
all right.
So we have a group of people that we've hired from that circumstance. But then, yeah, it does rotate because it's retail. So, the student staff, it's like they're getting younger and I'm getting older, right? Each batch is like another generation, and then I'm getting that book and I'm like, okay, how to manage millennials, how to manage Gen Zers. You got to keep educating yourself because it's just a different world. But they come in, and at max we'll have them for 4 years.
I suppose as they go through college.
As they go through college, and then they move on and they leave the nest,
right.
and we start over again. But I think what's difficult in managing staff is definitely the fact that the training never really ends then, right? When you have staff that are constantly rotating or are just putting in a small amount of hours, between 10 to 15 hours a week, because that works with the class schedule or whatnot. That part can be draining. It's just like,
sure.
Remember how we do this? You haven't done this in a couple of weeks. This is how we do that. Or, welcome to the team. You're going to leave because the next semester is not going to work for you? Okay, it was nice to see you for 3 months in this environment, So I think, maintaining the patience and repeating and reiterating a lot of the same policies and the same procedures over and over.
Yeah.
I mean, there are ways you can have people read it, but everyone's different in the way that they learn as far as hearing it, reading it, being advised as they themselves do it. So, I think that takes up a lot of our time.
Got it. Yeah, I can see how, even with the businesses that I have with employees, training's a huge, I want to call it on the edge of a nightmare.
Yeah.
Because you don't know, like everybody, like you said, they learn differently.
Yeah.
And their work ethic may or may not be in line with where we feel it should be. And just their interest, sometimes I feel like people want to be coddled a little bit more than, I don't know, our generation.
Yeah.
Gonna assume there a little bit. And it's tough. And I imagine here, when it's known to be transitorial, as they, I'm going away for the summer, moving back home or something like that.
Yeah.
Or I imagine even Christmas time, they're going back home and it's your busiest time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that commitment level is not, there like it would be if an individual was full-time or had more work experience even, you know what I mean? So some of the students, this is their first opportunity to work. I mean, and if they did, then it was, kind of, in high school where
at Arby's.
Yeah, exactly. They were the ones to get that job.
They got it. Lucky.
Yeah.
So have you had challenges where you're like, things that you didn't train because you just assumed they knew it, like making change or something like that? That were like, you don't know how to turn on a computer?
Well, we one time had a staff member that didn't know how to use a vacuum.
Didn't know how to use a vacuum?
Yes. And I was like, wait a minute. Yeah.
Not too elaborate there, right? Like, it's just a switch.
Because, we're having to keep the space clean, so that's kind of a part of it. But they didn't realize that the vacuum, you press the button, so it lowers. So they were like vacuuming like this.
No!
You're like,
that's kind of awesome.
You're like, Actually,
Did you have fun with them and just watch them do that before?
Unfortunately, I wasn't there to be able to comment on that. My manager was, but I was like, whoa, I can't believe it.
I feel like that's
So
like
you're
watching
"Ah,
someone
actually."
left-handed writing. Just
Yeah.
like, I'm just gonna just watch this a little bit.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Isn't that hilarious? Yeah. But I would say maybe just like the retaining of knowledge. You know, it's easy to assume that a person remembers how to do something because it might be something I do on a regular basis. So in my head, I'm like, oh yeah,
Everybody
I
knows
trained
how to
that.
do this.
Everybody knows how to do this. Yeah, exactly. And so what happens then is sometimes I'll forget that this person, oh, they haven't worked in a couple of weeks, or maybe they just need a little reminder because that's just they just tend to forget. So so I have to remind myself that just because I have that knowledge and I thought I've communicated and trained it, sometimes a review is necessary, or just checking in to be like, oh, do you remember how to do this? Do you have questions? Although sometimes when you say, like, do you remember? Do you have any questions? People will say no, and then they'll try, and then, yeah. So sometimes I think offering more information than not is probably better. Because otherwise you're then sometimes fixing mistakes, and then you go back, and then that can be extra work on the manager or myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, to do that, so.
I want to talk about product.
Yeah.
And let's just segue from employees of product. You have so many things and so much variety that I imagine to be an expert in all of them is probably not realistic.
Yeah, not in every category, no.
So I imagine if someone comes up and they're like, hey, are these prescription glasses, or ask some question, how do you work with your employees to know how to answer, even though they may not necessarily be the master of any given product?
Yeah. So when we get new product, or when we have category of product as people are hired on, we do share knowledge. But yeah, there is a lot of product, and it's hard to remember it all. And we don't actually get through every product. So if a person has a question, first of all, we remind the staff that they should be honest about the knowledge that they have. If they don't know, they have to say they don't know, and that they'll work on trying to figure that out.
Find the answer.
Find the answer, exactly. Because, you know, a person will be like, well, I think it's this, or...
Let me read the box.
So when a person asks a question and they don't have the answer, first thing I say, actually read the box. So like I'll be like, just grab it. If they're like, oh, what's the material of this scarf, or this blanket, or these socks, you know, grab it, find the tag. Sometimes it's as easy as that. Otherwise, asking a coworker, oftentimes there's one that's worked longer than another and has more knowledge. And then also Googling the information and going to the website, that's helpful. If we don't, if the staff working they can't find the answer, then just take in name and number, and, you know, having myself or my manager get back to them with that knowledge. But we never want to act as though we have an answer, or like make something up or assume something. So it's better in my mind to say, actually, let me get back to you on that to get the correct answer. But yeah, it is a challenge, especially, you know, if you have rotating staff, to like keep them up to date, and rotating products.
I was going to say, to keep it fresh, the product. I mean, you go to the shows every year to figure out what's going to be new and fresh in 6 months, a year. I don't, you can anticipate that.
Exactly. Yeah, about 6 months.
So I mean, the employees are coming in fresh. The product's coming in fresh. So that's got to be a challenge. Not impossible, but interesting. So let's go into product, how you find it, how you figure out what's actually going to be in the store. Because this is always changing.
I know. So it's a combination of ways in which I find the product. So main one and the most fun one is traveling to the shows. Yes, I love that. So I just went to Las Vegas for the gift show there. So that's going to be a focus on spring, summer products.
So just
early release.
I'm still not clear. What are these shows? Are these shows for vendors that sell the product to store owners like you?
Yeah, exactly.
And they're just carnival barking at you like, come on, the people in Madison want to buy this rock. I don't know, whatever. So the gift show, it's many booths filled with product, and the product is represented by a rep that's going to tell you about it, or a maker, or an artisan. And so the one that I went to recently, I mean, there's hundreds, if not thousands, of booths and spaces. So some are permanent spaces, so some will be like in like a
in a merchandise type mart, you know, like an environment where they have permanent booths where they can invite customers to come in and show the product. And then there's the temporary booths to make it big enough to draw people from across the country.
All right.
So in Las Vegas, it was at the World Convention Center there in Vegas, and it's, just a combination of, of vendors that are permanently located, and then the temporary vendors making it a really big show. And you go there and you're literally just walking the aisles and observing what's in each booth. Of course, you cannot stop in each booth. There's no time for that.
Right.
But there's time to like take a gander and assess what's in each space and evaluating if that matches the store, matches our community, our customers. And when you do it often, you can do it quickly.
All right.
So it's pretty easy for me to be like, yes, no, definitely not, definitely yes. And also just observing where other buyers are gravitating to. So when you see a cluster of people interested and excited about some products, then that makes me curious, and I'll enter that space. But you gotta avoid like every single salesperson, you know, because if you get a little too close and you definitely know it's not for you, and they're like, I got a sample for you, and they're luring you in, I'm like, I'm not gonna take the sample, and I'm not gonna get lured because I got a time crunch here.
Sure, you got stuff to do. All right.
Yeah. So that's the process, and I do that in a couple of, normally 2 to 3 days, so that I can see the product and I can absorb it. If I'm not, if I know right away I want it, I'm making that purchase, and I'm buying for the future. So make the purchase there, and then they'll ship it probably, normally within weeks it comes to the store. But if I'm not sure about it, I'm on the fence, and I'm still considering, I'll wait, and I have 3 days to kind of make that decision. So the benefit of buying at these shows then is to take advantage of show specials. So they'll be offering like free freight, which is huge because the cost of freight is going up. Or you might get a percentage off on your purchase if it meets a certain amount. So basically it's a way to kind of grow the margin.
All right.
Yeah.
Do they, let's just say, for example, this, what are these things? Are they
Tea towels?
Tea towels, okay.
Yeah.
So you go to the store, you see some person selling these tea towels.
Yeah.
They'll tell you the price wholesale. Then do they also give you a rough idea of what retail is? You know, kind of percentages and margins, stuff like that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and each store, you know, has a little bit different margin, but it's mostly the same. So I can do my own math, or they'll do the math. They'll have a suggested retail price, and then, you know, that varies depending on if you're in New York City versus, you know, Madison in the Midwest, or LA, depending on your cost of doing business.
Got it.
And then, but you got to do that math. And the question then is, the people in your community, are they willing to pay that amount for that item? So like an umbrella, what is an umbrella worth to an average person?
Right.
Is it worth $40? Is it worth $20? You know, and
All right.
and that also varies depending on where you live. You know, Madison versus New York City versus LA, as far as, you know, what people's incomes are, what they're willing to pay, and what value is added to the product to get it to that amount.
All right. I suppose an umbrella versus a environmentally friendly, made of unicorn tears umbrella or something like that.
Exactly. Those added values to it. Exactly.
All right. So this is the part that's amazing me about what you do, is because I would go to these stores and I'd be like, a bubble machine, this is great, or like a farting pillowcase, this is amazing. The whole world wants this. And I would end up at the store with a bunch of junk that nobody wants. You, like every year, you're like, 6 months from now, Madison is going to love this.
Yeah.
And you nail it.
Really? You think
I think so. Well, I mean, you don't have a full story as far as stuff that's just like, this has been sitting on the shelf for 10 years.
Yeah, that is true. We make sure it rotates. This product has to rotate. And if it doesn't, Maxwell, here we come. We're getting rid of all of it. Whatever doesn't move.
So how do you figure out where people's mindsets are going to be in the 3 months, 6 months, whatever it is? Like, it's not like, what are they feeling like tomorrow? It's what are they feeling like months from now?
Yeah, that's true.
And just the dynamic of society can change.
Right.
On a dime, really quick.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we've seen that a lot in the last few years, especially. But I would say, well, first of all, interestingly, I'm not personally a shopper. I don't like to shop.
Okay.
It's frustrating in the way that, you know, I like to shop when there's a purpose, there's a reason for it. Either I'm gifting a loved one or myself or whatever it may be. But not not a shopper just to shop. So I actually don't have that emotional connection between me and my desires and the product. I mean, of course, something I might see and I'm maybe more gravitating to because I like the look of it. Sure, I have those personal preferences to the color blue or, whatever it may be. But I think I do a pretty good job of like distancing myself from my personal desires. Which, like I said, I'm not quite a shopper like others could be on a personal level. So I'm kind of thinking more in my head about the reports that I've looked at, like sales. Like, okay, what color is a good color? Of all the colors of the rainbow, blues tend to be good. I mean, I like blue. It just works out that many people like blue. But yellow, not so much. So over time... And sure, the trends and accessories could change. I mean, yellow could be the Pantone color of the year, and then I'd change my mind about that. And I'd be like, everything's going to be yellow because that's a trend. But so I've just learned over the years, like, okay, what are some general trends? And then also I'm thinking about what's happening in the world, like you said. So like, for example, during this pandemic, we all know that pivoting, we've all pivoted in our world, right? Like pivoting is never, the word pivot has never ever in the history of the world been used as much as it has the last 2 years by humans. I mean, everyone's pivoted. So I think about how are people spending their time? Like, okay, we're indoors more. So how are we entertaining ourselves indoors? So immediately, I mean, puzzles we all know was like a craze and still kind of is, but especially on the front end of it. So paying attention to, the needs of individuals as we evolve as humans on this planet, like that, for example, or fashion and what are trends related to that. I mean, for a while, masks were a fashion. I mean, it's evolving again, right, as far as what we're wearing. But, so just kind of being in the know of what's coming up, what's coming ahead. Right now, of course, I have in my mind the cost of everything going up in general, with the cost of inflation. And that's trickles down to the end user, which means, the individual that's buying it is kind of they're seeing the biggest sticker shock in the end. I'm just thinking about making sure that we diversify the cost of our products. So even though prices go up, we just want to make sure that we have products that are, $5 to $10. As well as, those bags and purses that are, closer to $100, but that a person can come in and still find something within their bracket of economic means, so...
Or the gift for the person that they're looking for.
Yeah, exactly.
Just finding a coworker or something like that.
Well, that too.
$100 bag, you just give them this
that too.
little thing.
And for just, for the gifting purpose as well. But economics is, we're all affected by the last couple of years too, so... in different ways, and just making sure that we open the environment to everyone, so that they can all find something here for whatever purpose.
Right. I want to talk to you also about location. So Little Luxuries has been here for over 2 decades, right? A decade?
Over 30 years.
30 years.
Yeah.
That's a long time in one spot. So tell me, how has the dynamic of downtown changed? I came I came to Madison 20 whatever years ago, and people used to always talk about the people that lived in Madison forever. They're like, oh my gosh, downtown used to be just tanks rolling down or whatever it is that they had. There's always some, oh my gosh, it used to be this, and now it's that. How has it changed over the time, and what have been some of the challenges of just having a retail store downtown?
I mean, downtown Madison has always had its ups and downs. It wasn't just more recently, everyone kind of talks about what we most recently experienced, but I mean, I know for sure in the 90s when the store first opened, I think State Street was just humming. Retail was in a strong position. We had, I think, more diversity of businesses, more retail. I mean, right now we are a little heavier on the bars, restaurants, and service industries, like services such as like salons and tattoo artists, those kind of things as our population downtown increases. But I think back then there was a stronger retail presence. I mean, Janice owning 2 gift shops on State Street is kind of a big deal. Like one person owning 2 gift shops. So I think the diversity of businesses and also, the presence of retail and in general, in the 80s and 90s, there's just a lot of spending going on. You know, as credit cards were being used, I was like, I got it right here. Let's just charge it all. And since then, you know, in the 2000s, early 2000s, we've had the introduction of more online purchasing, right? And so we've been influenced by that. And in general, you know, big box stores were getting big, of course, in the 90s, and now we're seeing that shift as well. Big box stores and malls are, you know, kind of struggling.
Yeah.
So retail is evolving in a lot of ways, especially downtown. You know, we're losing a lot of retail downtown. And I'm seeing that the ones that are surviving are either the ones that aren't retiring, because a lot of them have retired, right?
Oh, sure.
So
Okay.
retired out of the business. And but I think the businesses that still remain on State Street are pretty strong and pretty solid. I think it's been the test of time in the last couple of years to see, you know, who kind of rises above and is still here. But, you know, State Street will always be a draw because of the Capitol, because of the university.
Yeah, it connects the two.
Yeah, when people come downtown, or when they're visiting Madison, it's just a part of the experience as being downtown. So, I mean, just yesterday, I meet people from all over the world. I mean, yesterday I had a woman that's from South Korea, that's an exchange student at the university here. I met a mother-daughter who, one lives in Colorado, one lives in Pennsylvania, and they met here. They flew here to go to a show at the Orpheum last night, and I'm like, that's cool. You know, people just end up on State Street. You know, we have stewardess from, you know, flight attendants coming in, you know, and they're flying all over, and they always stay downtown, and then they're visiting us, and they're telling us about, you know, their experiences in the air, and yeah, so we just get a variety of people, and they're here because of our location.
All right.
So the traffic, I mean, despite the fact that our visual presence and physical presence has changed and evolved, and we do see more empty spaces, there's still going to be a draw, and I think we'll still evolve into something we don't yet know.
Sure,
you
fair.
know, we have a lot of development projects going on the 300, 400 blocks, so what will fill those main street level spaces, those retail spaces, it will be interesting to see what transpires from that. You know, there's been the pop-up shops in some of the empty spaces, the Culture Collective, that was a success, and I think there's a goal to get some of these makers new spaces as that space now is developed, being developed. So yeah, so we're seeing a little less presence of retail, and we're seeing some empty spaces, but it could create for new opportunities. And it's, I think what's hard for me, I mean, I can control what's happening in this environment, and I have to remind myself of that. But I do like to see vibrancy, and I like to see, you know, a community well cared for. And sometimes when you have less activation, like less spaces being used, sometimes it can just look a little abandoned, and that loss of energy and activity, you know, kind of, it pulls from a community. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what happens here in spring with events coming back downtown, and you know, the farmers market always kind of kicks that off, and looking to see what neighbors we do end up being able to welcome in our community. Just around the corner here, we actually have a new shop that popped up. So and that was just a couple months ago. Yeah, or actually a month ago. So yeah, we will continue to evolve, and I think the future will be positive. I mean, the location is worth it in the fact that we do have the pedestrian traffic. So
there's always somebody walking.
Yeah, we pay more to be here, but it's worthwhile in the end if you know, have that all figured out financially. We'll have the traffic year round. Summer is a pretty busy time for us, just as much as Christmas is. So we have two main seasons where most gift shops, depending on their location, might just have to focus on that one winter.
Oh, interesting.
Okay. As the uptick. So yeah.
So in the summertime, there's so much hustle and bustle going on.
Yeah, and events going on, and on the square, and now down State Street. That really draws a lot of people.
Nice. So. Over the course of time since you've been a part of Little Luxuries, what has changed with the relationship with downtown and government? Because I imagine Well, I see even Eau Claire as an example. When I was a kid, I grew up in Eau Claire. Downtown was like, oh, downtown? Ugh.
Yeah.
It was just this dingy bars, and it was dive, it was dump. Now I go down there, visit family. I'm like, this is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Which I would have never guessed when I was a kid that was going to change like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like, or I guess I've heard, that there's a lot of people in places that could make decisions that just pushed for the downtown to become vibrant as an attractant to the city.
Right.
So I imagine with State Street, this is a staple of Madison, and a few mayors have come and gone, city council, whatever. And I imagine there's been times where, to them, State Street was a priority, and to others, State Street was just like, that place.
Yeah.
So what have you seen, or I guess what's the current trend?
Yeah, let's see here. I would say downtown Madison is unique in the way that we have a bid.
Okay.
The bid stands for Business Improvement District.
Okay.
You know, so we do have, that is kind of unique to our community in the way that we have this organization funded by taxes paid by property owners, and that's, you know, kind of a part of the rent that we pay being downtown.
Sure, so property owners on the
Property
State
owners
Street?
on the strip, yeah,
Okay.
State Street and around the square, and
Okay.
like I think a block off in every direction off of that main
All right.
corridor. So there are funds that are meant to, you know, help inspire things like the Madison Night Market, which is an event, or help pay for, you know, some of the plants that we have in the planters on the street to
All
kind
right.
of improve the way, you know, it looks just at an intersection,
Mhm.
or the lights at the holidays and such.
All right.
So we do have an organization kind of designed to kind of monitor traffic and, you know, pay attention to the trends of downtown and organize a lot of things that like business owners don't have the capability to do.
Right.
That then takes a little bit of the responsibility of the city to have to focus on those details, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's tax money that goes to that organization, and they're not the sole ones, so the city still has responsibility.
Right.
But I do think then that allows the city to have a little opportunity to take a little step back and be like, well, there's a bid there, and that bid
All right.
has the funds, and the bid has some staff that should be able to help with kind of working things out
All
down
right.
there.
So is the bid controlled by the city, or the people that work for the bid?
The people that work for the
Employees
bid
of the
work for
city?
the city,
Okay.
yes, exactly, because
right.
it's funded by taxes, yeah. So what I've seen in my involvement is just in general, I think there's a little bit of distance, like, oh, they have a different organization that no other community in Madison has.
Oh.
So this is the only bid in the city.
Wow.
Whereas Milwaukee has like, I don't even know how many, but they have multiple bids
All right.
for various communities. So then each one of those organizations funded by the taxes, which is associated with the city, you know, they can make some decisions and they have staff on hand to like specifically kind of work on their specific
Mhm.
community. So we're kind of unique to the rest of the city in that way.
All
And
right.
so in some ways, I believe that's just like an opportunity for the city to be like, there's someone else kind of handling that area.
All right.
But in the meantime, yeah, there is still responsibility to make decisions such as public transportation,
Mm-hmm.
and, you know, everybody, you know, we've been talking about the BRT, where that's going and how that will impact the downtown community, and,
BRT is bus rapid
oh,
transit?
bus rapid transit,
Okay.
yeah, exactly.
Because you're talking about bigger bus stops and things like that? Or,
Exactly. Oh, not necessarily bigger,
or
well,
even
yeah.
buses on State Street?
Buses
something like
on
that?
State Street, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, there was a conversation about the idea of making State Street a pedestrian mall only. Population of people wanted just the pedestrian mall, population of people wanted the BRT to come down State Street.
Mm-hmm.
I think what we're gonna land on in the end is gonna be BRT going down a portion of State Street,
Okay.
the upper end of State Street. But just thinking about, yeah, how the community evolves, what would a pedestrian mall do to a community as far as activating it and allowing for more events to happen on State Street?
Oh.
And so, you know, the city is involved in decisions like that as we move forward related to public transportation.
Mm-hmm.
So in that's a process we're working through at the moment. And then also, city approval of events. It hasn't been easy to have events on State Street just because of the fact that public transportation does go down
Right.
State Street. So it does complicate the process of getting approvals,
Mm-hmm.
permits, all of that, especially when
Oh.
it's interrupting, public transportation for people. So
All right.
it'll be interesting to have a segment of the street be possibly a pedestrian mall to see how that could open up opportunities for pop-up events on State Street
Mhm.
that could allow for artisans to come down or, just like more activities and fun things to
Right.
do.
Just so people
yeah.
know,
Yeah,
you can't drive on State Street,
no,
right?
you can't
It's only
drive on State Street.
buses or taxis?
Buses and taxis.
Taxis, okay.
And delivery trucks at certain times of day,
Okay.
of the day, that won't interrupt the bus.
All right.
Bus transportation, yeah. Also, I'm trying to think what else with the city recently have we been talking about?
Have they changed
forgot.
any of the events? Like there was Art Fair in the Square, or there's
Yeah,
Farmers Market,
those are all gonna happen.
okay, Maxwell
I
Street
think
Days you
so.
mentioned?
Yep, exactly, Maxwell and Madison Night Market.
Okay,
Yeah, so we've increased the amount of events that are going to be happening on State Street. So
Okay,
Madison
well, that's
Night
good.
Market's moved to State Street versus Gilman Street. Yeah,
all right,
because I think in the end, Madison was designed to be, a street to draw people to it and to maximize the street versus the side streets. In my mind, makes sense.
Mhm.
That's kind of the corridor
Yeah.
of our community, the main corridor, and. Yeah, so that's exciting that'll stick. I think, there are some changes that are happening since the pandemic, such as like the streetery program, and that's going to be extended. Some things will be extended and continued.
I'm sorry, I don't
Oh,
even
the
know what that is.
streetery program is just this opportunity for restaurants to expand out into parking
Oh.
spaces,
Okay,
parking lots, expand beyond maybe the limitations of even parts of the sidewalk,
All right.
to expand outdoor seating.
Okay.
So that we can maximize, the outdoors is just a little bit, safer circumstance during this pandemic. So
Mhm.
that program to allow for businesses to continue to expand outside and use some of these spaces that were used for something like parking is going to continue into the future beyond the pandemic is,
All right.
is the conversation. So, so some of these changes or adjustments or experiments during this time period in the last couple of years
Mhm.
to help allow businesses to continue to succeed and survive throughout all this, we might see some changes continue beyond the pandemic, which
Right.
is interesting.
Got it,
So,
all right,
I think that'll be helpful for a lot of businesses,
okay,
and that's in the city of Madison.
Nice.
So city policy, affects us greatly, so
Mhm.
we're always keeping an eye on that. In general, yeah.
all right. It's gonna be tough, a lot to juggle.
It's a lot to juggle, it really is, yeah, and I can't imagine what it would be like to be a mayor and manage all of it at the same time.
No.
And, in my mind, because I'm located here and I see it day to day, State Street's like super important because it's in my world all the
Right.
time. There's so many other little streets here and there that are also important to people too, so.
Fair,
So, yeah.
totally
I
fair.
think that there's a lot of heart and soul behind this downtown area that I think we'll continue to thrive. We're just gonna look a little different.
Right,
And it'll
that's
take
fair.
some time. Because the same thing happened, I think, in about the 70s, there was a
Mhm.
lot of change happening as there was protests. I think you were talking about tanks.
There's a whole Vietnam, I don't know if they were tanks, but this whole Vietnam
Yeah,
protest
yeah.
thing. I interviewed a guy that wrote about there's a bombing
Yes.
at one of the university buildings. I
Yeah.
think a couple people ended up getting killed, right?
Right.
I think, and
Yeah.
they never found the guy that did it, and that was Vietnam protesting, whatever, so. I don't, things change, right?
Yeah, they changed. And so that was an example, I think, where, the downtown community, as far as the businesses go, there were a lot of closures as well
Mm,
after that. And so there was a period of time, maybe like 5 to 10 years, where the community down on State Street here just was similar in the way that there was a lot of empty spaces
All
and
right.
a little less active.
mm-hmm.
But then there was an uptick come the 80s, and much changed then, I think. Then
money and fun.
Big boom. It was like, let's do this, yeah. And then it changed, and and now we're evolving again, and retail is evolving. It's an industry that's changed so much since then. And that was a big chunk of the businesses downtown.
Yeah.
And so, of course, as our world changes related to technology, that's going to change our storefronts. But I do think there will always be the need to be in person, the desire to be in person.
Agreed.
And to have, a person face to face helping you with that customer service, and just having the sensory experience, smelling and touching and seeing up close the products that you want to purchase, and just all of that is just so human to have all of that of it for an experience. And so I don't think that small business retail will ever go away. Now, I can see how big box stores can be replaced, if you don't have such a positive experience, how easy it can be to go online to get that, random object.
Right, you need dishwasher detergent versus a gift for a friend.
Yeah, exactly. It's a little different. So I have no fears about retail and the longevity of it as a whole. It will still exist. It will just need to be special.
All right, fair. I love it. Where do you see the store going or evolving over the next few years? You did a whole remodel.
Yes.
In this place.
Did a remodel.
Which, kudos to you, because that had to be an undertaking and a half.
Well, I'm glad I did it when I did, because the cost of construction now has gone up twofold. So the timing of that worked out really well.
How long ago was that?
Let me think. That was 2018.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so right on the cusp. Okay.
Right on the cusp, yeah. So, let me think. What would I evolve? I'm going to continue. I'm thinking very carefully about the product. I'm thinking about where our gifts are sourced, where they're coming from, where and the value behind it, what materials are they made of, the environmental impact, maybe, nonprofit associations to the sales of goods.
All right.
There's a lot of companies kind of moving in that direction, making sure that I'm sourcing products that are not available on Amazon.
Right.
That, when I'm purchasing, so I'm purchasing in person at these shows, but also there are online platforms for wholesalers to make purchases. And, one thing you can click for a value is not on Amazon. So I clicked that, so it's not something that you could easily pivot in that direction and be like, Amazon has it for this price, and this is a little more convenient. So just making sure it's not something that's everywhere, basically, and is unique, and then adds value, adding value to the product. What else for major changes? I think our website, now that we have an e-commerce site, just continuing to manage that and making that run smoother and expanding on the products available there.
All right.
Once you create the beast, you can't,
Right.
you got to keep up with it, right? You can't go back. So
that's got to be tough, though, because there's so many products.
Yeah. Luckily, more recently, we attached our inventory on our purchase order of sale system to our website. So it will take it off of our website, as we sell down of a product and, get close to almost being out of it. Then it'll pull it from our website. Before, we were kind of managing it, and we were watching our inventory. We're like, okay, take that off the website before it gets sold.
It was all manual.
Yeah, it was manual.
Brutal.
Originally, when we were just quick throwing things online, and we weren't totally evolved as a website. So I think continuing to navigate the internet and maximize it in a way that is still manageable for us, and not too overwhelming. Thinking about that. And just community building. I think, during the last couple of years, I think so many people have shared their stories and come together from all parts of our community, so I feel like I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot about myself, our business, our place in the world, what's important to me, and what should be important to our business. And so probably continuing to strengthen relationships, whether it be through the makers, that make things locally, or our vendors, or reps, or neighbors and customers, and just staying involved in all the ways. Yeah, in the community.
That's a lot to keep track
A
of.
lot of love. Yeah, exactly. A lot.
Like we got product, we got employees, we got storefront, we got people, community.
I know, it is a lot. Yeah, so if anyone's looking for a job, yeah, that's true. In the meantime, that is something I'm thinking to myself, eventually I'd like to pull out a little bit more from the operational side of things.
Right.
But then you keep adding more to the plate. And when you have high expectations of yourself and the performance of your business,
Right.
Then it's difficult to let go. So, yeah, that's a delicate balance.
I think just as any business owner, at least what I've found, is you work so hard on building that business that even though you can step away,
Yeah.
you either don't want to or you feel guilty for doing so. And you have to really consciously pull yourself away. You could probably argue it's like an addiction.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, it's a
Actually,
money-making
good point.
addiction, I suppose, or fun addiction.
Yeah.
Probably a semi-decent addiction.
Maybe addiction to that stress, like that little inner hum.
I think it's the...
I have a little bit of, I get a little adrenaline from it.
Right.
To be challenged.
I think it's the
Interestingly,
need to be needed.
Yeah,
That people have that where they're just like, I'm the boss, I'm making the decisions, I'm just spinning all these plates.
Yeah.
And when you get people set up to spin the plates for you, you're more or less an audience member. Sounds
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
But that's, I mean, most of the time, that's the goal.
Right.
So then once you get there, you're like, I gotta go create another problem
Yeah.
so that I can solve it.
Well, lately, there's been plenty of problems I didn't have to create.
Right?
Yeah, it just naturally happened. Yeah, but that is a good point. Although I am trying to pull myself a little bit away, so like in the winter I've been taking a little longer breaks, especially
Nice.
in the last few years. It's gotten really quiet in the wintertime. And so, yeah, I'm taking 3 weeks off, like just
Nice.
a little bit, like expanding it just a little bit, just to practice letting go. And it's easier if you're not around, if you're just like, literally, I'm out of the state,
So, yeah, okay. Throw the cell phone out the window and
Yeah, exactly.
just head west or south. Or
Yes,
somewhere.
exactly. Just get on the open road and just go somewhere.
All
Yeah.
right. Very
so,
cool. Very cool. Well, Amy, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Can you tell everyone the address where they can find you physically in the store?
Yeah. So we're located at 230 State Street here in Madison, downtown Madison. And yep, I'm Amy and owner of Little Luxuries. We'd love to
Nice.
see you downtown.
And then how about a website?
Yes, littleluxuriesmadison.com is our website, and Facebook and Instagram, Little Luxuries Madison is where you can find us.
Nice.
Yeah.
And people can find stuff online, they can buy it, and they can be anywhere essentially?
Yes.
Or
Within the
nationally?
United States.
Okay.
Yep, exactly. Nationally within the States. We are shipping anywhere.
Nice. Yeah, it's a small world until you have to ship something.
I know, right? Yeah.
Like, how much was that?
Yeah.
I just had to ship a computer back from ex-employee. And I'm like, that's $200. I don't think the computer was worth maybe a few hundred.
Yeah.
It's bizarre. Anyways, thank you for watching. This is James. Amy at Little Luxuries. You can check her out. Tell us the website again.
littleluxuriesmadison.com.
All right. Authentic Business Adventures is brought to you by Calls on Call, offering call answering and receptionist services for service businesses across the country on the web at callsoncall.com, as well as Draw-In Customers Business Coaching, offering business coaching services for entrepreneurs looking for growth on the web at drawincustomers.com. And of course, the Bold Business Book, a book for the entrepreneur and all of us, available wherever fine books are sold. We'd like to thank you, our wonderful listeners and viewers, as well as our guest, Amy Moore, owner of Little Luxuries in Madison. You got to totally check it out. It's so funny because when I talk to people anywhere, you mention Madison, and they're like, oh, I've been there. I've partied in Madison.
Yeah.
And they know State Street, so it's
Yeah.
crazy how people all over the country, all over the world really
Yeah.
just know, and you got a store.
The community. Yeah.
That's
it's
cool.
Pretty special.
Yeah.
I feel fortunate. Yeah.
Awesome. Check it out.
All right.
Thank you for watching. If you could do us a huge favor, hit that big thumbs up, comment. If you have any questions for any, by all means, throw them down there. Smash that subscribe button, and of course, share this with your entrepreneurial friends.